If you've ever said the words, "I just don't feel confident," I'm going to lovingly call you out right from the start, because most of you listening right now are not lacking confidence. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not missing some magical personality trait that everyone else got handed in neat little boxes. Your confidence isn't missing. It's suppressed, buried, conditioned down, trained out of you, socially edited, emotionally restrained, nervous system muted. And today we're going to dig it back up properly, somatically, spiritually and practically. Not with fluffy affirmations, not with fake it till you make it nonsense, and not with just believe in yourself motivational quotes that sound cute but change nothing. We are going to rebuild your confidence from the body, from the emotional field, from your truth and from your voice. Because confidence is not a mindset trick. Confidence is an emotional state. And if your body doesn't feel safe to be seen, heard, disagreed with, or judged, you will never feel confident, no matter how many affirmations you chant in the mirror. So take a breath with me, just for a moment. Notice your chest, notice your throat, notice your stomach, because this conversation is not happening in your head. It's happening in your emotional body. And that's exactly where February work lives. Now, before we go any further, let me introduce myself properly. For those of you who are new here, I'm Cherry, a spiritual life coach, numerologist, energy body mentor, and truth speaker for people who are done shrinking themselves just to be digestible. I work with recovering people pleasers, emotionally exhausted givers, spiritually aware but self-silencing souls, the ones who are wise, intuitive, heart-led, and still somehow are afraid to take up space. My work blends emotional regulation, energy body awareness, spiritual truth, numerology, and grounded embodiment. Because transformation that stays only in the mind doesn't last. We do real change here, the kind your nervous system can actually hold. I'm going to be your best friend and your mirror today, which means I'm here with love, but I'm also going to call out your patterns where needed. Not to shame you, but to free you. Because too many of you have been taught to label your survival adaptations as personality flaws. Let's clear something up right now. If you speak freely with close friends but freeze in groups, that's not low confidence. That's context-based nervous system threat detection. If you can write powerful messages but struggle to say them out loud, that's not weakness. That's voice suppression conditioning. If you know what you want, but you can't say it when it matters, that's not incompetence. That's emotional safety wiring. And if you're waiting to feel confident before you act, you've been taught confidence backwards. Confidence is not the cause of action. Confidence is the result of expressed action. But here's the part most coaches won't tell you, because it's not as markable and it doesn't fit nicely on a quote tile. You cannot build real confidence while you are still emotionally self-abandoning. You cannot feel powerful while constantly overriding your truth. You cannot feel secure while betraying your own boundaries. So if you've been trying to build confidence while still saying yes when you mean no, still smiling when it hurts, still agreeing when you disagree, still hiding your needs, of course it's not working. That's not a confidence problem. That's a self-trust fracture. And we're going to repair that step by step across this entire video. Today, I'm going to walk you through what confidence actually is, where it gets shut down, how suppression forms in the emotional body, why people pleasers are trained out of confidence early, how to recognize suppressed confidence patterns, and the practical somatic way to rebuild it safely and sustainably. Not performative confidence, not loud confidence, not ego confidence, embodied confidence. The kind where your voice stops shaking when you say what's true, the kind where your no's come out clean, the kind where you stop over-explaining your existence, the kind where you don't need permission to take up space. And I need you to hear this next line very clearly. You were not born unsure. You were trained to doubt yourself. Watch any small child before social conditioning tightens its grip. They speak, they express, they ask, they declare, they take up space. They cry when they're upset. They laugh with joyfulness. They say no when they actually mean no. That is baseline human confidence. Confidence is not added, it is reduced, which means our job is not to install something new. Our job is to remove what suppressed it. And yes, that means some of you are going to have to stop blaming yourself, blaming your personality, and start looking at your conditioning, because that's just how I am is often just trauma wearing a name badge. And I say that with love and precision. Over this video together, I'm going to guide you through emotional truth, nervous system awareness, somatic exercises and voice activation, boundary rehearsal, and identity recalibration. Because confidence returns when safety returns. Not when you push harder, not when you pretend louder, and not when you posture stronger. When your system feels safe to be real. So if you're ready, not just to feel better, but to become braver in your body, clearer in your voice, and truer in your expression, stay with me. We're not hype building today. We're confidence recovering, and we're doing it properly. So let's move on to the myth of low confidence. Let's actually start dismantling something that has wasted years of people's lives. Low confidence, as it's commonly described, is mostly a misdiagnosis. And yeah, I'm saying that directly on purpose because too many of you have been trying to fix the wrong problem with the wrong tools and then blaming yourselves when it doesn't work. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is not something only extroverts have. Confidence is not something you either got or didn't get at birth. Confidence is a nervous system state, which means it is situational, trainable, impressionable, and recoverable. When your nervous system feels safe, you express more freely. When your nervous system feels threatened, you contract, hesitate, soften, freeze, or form. Most people call this second state low confidence. It's not low confidence. It's a protection response. Your body is not broken, it's adaptive. But adaptation can become identity if you're not conscious. And that's where the trap happens. Some of you built an entire self-image around a survival pattern. I'm shy. I'm not confident. I'm not a speaker. I'm just not that type of person. No, you're a person whose system learned that visibility equals risk. There's a difference. And if you don't separate those two, you'll try to personality hack what is actually a safety issue. And mindset hacks do not override nervous system threat responses. You can chant, I am confident, until your tea goes cold. But if your body believes speaking equals danger, your throat will still tighten when it matters. That's not failure. That's physiology. Now, I want to move on to how emotional shutdown gets mislabeled as no confidence. So let me describe something and see if you recognize it. You know the answer, but you don't raise your hand. You have an idea, but you don't share it. You feel hurt, but you say, it's fine. You want to disagree, but then you nod. You want to set a boundary, but you soften it into a suggestion. Afterwards, you tell yourself, I should be more confident. No, what actually happened? Your emotional body detected possible social threat, like rejection, disapproval, or conflict, misunderstanding, abandonment, judgment, and it hits the brakes. That's not lack of confidence, that's emotional shutdown. And shutdown can look like going blank, losing your words, your voice going quiet, over smiling, over agreeing, deferring your opinion. Waiting to be invited instead of initiating. Your tone shrinks, your body collapses inwards. That is a regulated survival strategy, not a character flaw. But when you mislabel shutdown as I'm just not confident, you accidentally shame yourself for protecting yourself. And shame never builds confidence. It just buries it deeper. So we correct the label first. It's not I lack confidence. It's my system didn't feel safe enough to express. That one sentence shift changes the entire pathway of healing, because now we're not trying to become a different person. We're trying to build a safer internal state. Now, let's get clinically clear, because precision matters. When someone says, I'm not confident, it is almost always one of three things, and each one needs a different solution. If you treat them all the same, you stall progress. Now, the first one is lack of skill. Sometimes you're not confident because you're not yet skilled, and that's normal. If you've never spoken on camera, your first video will feel awkward. If you've never set a boundary, your first one will feel clumsy. If you've never led, your first attempt will feel shaky. That is not emotional suppression. That is skill development. Skill grows through repetition. Confidence grows through expressed repetition, not perfect repetition. This is where practice, feedback, modeling, and training matters. But here's where people mess this up. They emotionally personalize skill gaps. Instead of saying, I'm new at this, they say, I'm bad at this. I'm not confident. I'm not cut out for this. No, you're just unpracticed. Stop turning beginner stages into identity statements. That's ego protection disguised as humility. The second is lack of safety. This is a big one, especially for people pleasers, emotionally attuned spiritual sensitives. You have the skill. You have the knowledge. You have the insight, but your body doesn't feel safe using it. This can show up as freezing in authority dynamics, shrinking around dominant personalities, silence in groups, voice shaking under pressure, over-apologizing, and emotional compliance. This is not skill defect. This is safety defect. And safety is built through nervous system regulation, emotional validation, graduate exposure, boundary success experiences, repair after rapture, and voice rehearsal in low-risk settings. So don't shout your way out of this. You regulate your way out of this. Now, the third is lack of permission. This one is subtle and it hits deep. Some of you are not lacking confidence. You are lacking self-permission, permission to take up space, want more, say no, disagree, be inconvenient, change direction, be visible, powerful, spiritually expressed, be emotionally honest. You're waiting for the approval you are never going to receive. And here is where I lovingly call you out. Waiting for permission is a socially acceptable form of self-abandonment. You keep saying, when they understand me, I'll speak. When they support me, I'll act. When they approve, I'll move. No, confidence grows when you authorize yourself, not when you're endorsed. Permission is an internal decision, not an external award. So now let's address the elephant in the coaching industry. Mindset work is useful, but incomplete. Affirmations help language. Reframes help cognition. Belief work helps interpretation. But none of these override a dysregulated nervous system. If your body feels unsafe, your mind will not win the argument. Body first, meaning second. This is why you can know you're capable. Believe your worth, understand your value, agree with empowering thoughts, and still not speak, because the body votes louder than the mind. Real confidence work includes somatic regulation, emotional permission, voice activation, boundary rehearsal, relational repair and exposure pacing, not just thought replacement. We're not just changing what you think. We're changing what your system believes is survivable. And that, my friend, is where real confidence begins to come back online. Now, we're going to go to the root. And I want you to stay open here, not defensive, because this is the part where people either wake up or start explaining their patterns away. Confidence suppression doesn't start in adulthood. It doesn't start at your last job. It doesn't start with your last relationship. It starts in early emotional conditioning, not because your caregivers were evil, not because your teachers were villains, but because most humans were never taught how to emotionally validate expression, only how to manage behavior. And behavior control without emotional validation creates suppression. So let's walk through this slowly and honestly. You were not trained to be confident. You were trained to be acceptable. There is a difference, and it matters. Confidence says, I will express truth. Conditioning says, I will express what keeps connection. And when connection feels threatened, expression gets edited. That's where suppression is born. Children come into the world expressive, direct, emotional, honest, and energetically loud. Just watch a toddler. They say no clearly. They cry loudly. They laugh fully. They demand attention, they protest unfairness, they state preferences, and they take up space without apology. That is natural embodied confidence. Then the conditioning begins. Not always harsh, not always dramatic. It's often subtle, receptive, and relational, with messages like, don't be rude, don't talk back, calm down, stop being dramatic, you're too sensitive, let others speak. Be polite. Don't show off. Good children don't behave like that. Now, some of those statements are meant to teach social function. That's fair. But when emotional expression is corrected without emotional validation, the child learns something dangerous. Expression risks disconnection. And the nervous system logs that. not as a thought, but as survival imprint. So instead of I'm expressive, the system learns expression must be managed, and managed expression becomes muted confidence. Now let's talk about visibility punishment, because I think this might be huge for you. Visibility punishment happens when being seen leads to criticism, ridicule, emotional withdrawal, comparison, jealousy, shaming, being labelled too much, such as you answer confidently, you were mocked, you showed talent, some minimized it, you spoke boldly, you were corrected sharply, you expressed emotion and you were dismissed, you stood out and you were socially targeted. Your nervous system doesn't file that as those people were insecure. It files it as being seen is dangerous. So what happens? Brightness gets dimmed, voice gets softened, opinions get filtered, and presence gets reduced. And years later you say, I'm just not confident. No, your visibility was punished and your system adapted intelligently. But what protected you then is limiting you now. And part of your work, yes, I'm calling you forward here, is stop obeying old safety rules that no longer serve your adult reality. So now let's flip the coin. Because suppression isn't built only through punishment, it's also built through reward. And this is where it gets sneaky. Many of you weren't just corrected for expression, you were praised for compliance, such as such a good girl, such a good boy, so well behaved, so easy, so mature, so agreeable, no trouble at all. Sounds nice, right? Except here's where the nervous system pairs together. Compliance equals connection. Compliance equals approval. Compliance equals safety. And compliance equals belonging. An expression that disrupts comfort equals risk. So the child learns, adapt to be loved. Now fast forward, you struggle to say no. You over-explain, over-give. You emotionally manage others. You fear disappointing people, and you call it kindness. And sometimes it is, but sometimes, and here's your loving call out, it's approval dependency wearing a halo. True kindness includes self-loyalty. Compliance without self-loyalty is suppression. So let's name this clearly, because naming breaks spells. The good girl, good boy pattern is not about gender. It's about relational conditioning. It's the nervous system strategy of I stay safe by being acceptable. And those traits include emotionally restraint. Your tone softens. You'll become conflict avoidant, authority pleasing, over responsibility, hyper attuned to others, self-editing your speech, and permission seeking. This pattern creates externally liked people and internally silenced adults. You look functional, you look supportive, you look emotionally intelligent, but inside you're tight, filtered, careful and guarded. Confidence cannot grow when self-expression is constantly pre-screened. And some of you, again, I say this with love, are still trying to be emotionally well-behaved instead of emotionally honest. You don't need to become rude, but you do need to become real. So let's bring this all home together. People-pleasing is not a personality style. It is a confidence suppression strategy. It says, I will manage your comfort instead of expressing my truth. And every time you choose that, confidence goes a little further underground. Not gone, just buried. People-pleasing trains you to scan reactions before speaking, adjust truth for approval, dilute boundaries, soften needs, prioritize harmony over honesty, trade authenticity for acceptance. And the long-term cost? Resentment, exhaustion, identity confusion, voice hesitation, and boundary paralysis. Confidence dies in chronic self-betrayal. Let me say that again clearly. Confidence cannot survive repeated self-betrayal. Not because you're weak, but because your system learns my truth is not safe to express. The rebuild begins when self-loyalty returns. And yes, that will feel uncomfortable at first. Growth always does. But suppression already costs you. You're just used to paying the price. Now, in the next part of this video, we're going to map the exact signs that your confidence is suppressed, not missing, so that you can see your patterns clearly instead of pathologizing yourself. So stay with me. Now, we're going to get practical and personal, because this is where I want you to stop listening like a student and start listening like a witness to your own patterns. Not with shame, not with defensiveness, with clean awareness. Most people trying to build confidence are actually trying to override suppression patterns they haven't even identified yet. You can't rebuild what you refuse to recognize. So I'm going to walk you through the most common behavioral and somatic signs of suppressed confidence. And I want you to notice what lands. Not what sounds dramatic, just what feels familiar. And I'm going to be straight with you here. Some of these are so socially normalized that people call them being nice or being thoughtful, when actually they are self-silencing habits. So let's turn the lights on. Over-explaining is one of the loudest indicators of suppressed confidence, and it hides in plain sight. This is when you cannot simply state a truth, a preference or boundary. You feel compelled to build a courtroom case around it. You don't just say, I can't make it. Instead, you say, I'm so sorry, it's just that I've had a really long week and I didn't sleep well and I've got this thing tomorrow and I don't want to let you down. But that's not clarity. That's fear padding. Over-explaining is what happens when your nervous system believes your thoughts won't be accepted on this alone. So you try to make it more acceptable, more justified, more digestible, more defensible. But here's the loving interruption. Truth does not require a defense attorney. Over-explaining is approval seeking disguised as communication. Clean confidence sounds shorter. I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. I've decided differently. Or you could just say no. And if that feels rude to you, good. We just found a suppression imprint, because directness is not cruelty. Unregulated delivery is cruelty. Clarity is not. So your homework later will include practicing shorter truth statements, not because brevity is trendy, but because confidence doesn't beg to be understood before it speaks. Now, this next one is subtle and powerful. Tone softening is when your message and your music don't match. Your words say one thing, your tone apologizes for saying it. As an example, your boundaries come out like a question. Your disagreement sounds like a confession. Your opinion sounds like a request, and your no sounds like a maybe. You might say, I don't really think that works, when what you mean is, that doesn't work. Why does this happen? Because somewhere along the way, wrong tone triggered negative response. So your system learned to emotionally blur your delivery. Tone softening is a safety behavior, but it has a cost. People don't take you seriously. Your boundaries get negotiated. Your truth gets overridden. Your leadership gets doubted. And then you tell yourself, I need more confidence. No, you need tone congruence. Congruence is when message and tone and posture and breath align. And we will train that later somatically, because tone lives in breath and vagal regulation, not willpower. This one hits deep, and I want you to really hear it. Suppressed confidence often shows up as chronic permission seeking. You ask permission to speak, rest, need, change, say no, take up space, charge money, share ideas, have emotions, or set limits. It sounds like, is that okay? Does that make sense? Sorry, can I just say something? I might be wrong, but... This is probably silly, but let me be your blunt best buddy for a moment. Stop apologizing for having a voice. Permission-seeking language trains others to outrank you in your own life. Now, nuance matters. Collaboration is healthy, but chronic pre-approval speech is self-erasure training. Confident expression does not require emotional tiptoeing before every sense. You are allowed to enter conversations without shrinking at the doorway. And later in this training, I'll give you a language upgrade framework. But first, you need to see how often you minimize yourself before you even begin. This is huge for spiritually aware, emotionally intelligent, service-orientated people. When confidence is suppressed, you don't express, you perform. You become highly skilled at presenting the acceptable version of you. You say what sounds wise. You show what looks calm. You respond how a good person should, but it's curated, not true. Performance asks, what response will keep connection? Expression asks, what is true right now? Performance monitors reactions while speaking. Expression inhabits truth while speaking. Performance is exhausting. Expression is regulating. Some of you are burnt out not because you do too much, but because you perform too often. You are managing perception instead of inhabiting presence. Confidence returns when performance drops and truth increases, even if the truth is messy at first, especially then. Now let's talk about visibility freeze, because this is one of the clearest nervous system indicators of suppressed confidence. You're fine until attention turns towards you. Then suddenly your mind blanks, your throat tightens, your words disappear. Your heart races and your face flushes and your voice shakes. This is not incompetence. This is a spotlight threat response. Your system associates being seen with risk. Maybe past ridicule, maybe criticism, maybe emotional exposure, maybe authority pressure. So when all eyes turn towards you, your survival wiring hits pause. And instead of saying, my nervous system is in freeze, you say, I'm bad at speaking. Wrong diagnosis, wrong solution. You don't fix freeze with positive thinking. You fix freeze with paced exposure, breath regulation, vagal toning, voice rehearsal, safety anchoring. Confidence grows when visibility becomes survivable, not when you shame yourself for freezing. So now we go into the body, because suppressed confidence always leaves somatic fingerprints. Most common locations, throat. You get a tightness, dryness, lump sensation, voice strain, difficult projecting. This is expression inhabitation. In the chest, you get pressure, shallow breathing, guarded posture, collapsed sternum. This is emotional self-protection. Solar plexus, knots, nausea, fluttering contractions, heat. This is personal power, suppression, and boundary fear. Your body is not being dramatic. It's being informative. Suppressed confidence is not just a mindset pattern. It is a muscular pattern, a breath pattern, a vagal pattern, which is good news because bodies can be retrained. We're not guessing here. We're rebuilding through the system, not just the story. Next, we move into the repair phase, emotional body restoration and safety rebuilding, where confidence starts to come back online in real measurable ways. So stay with me here. This is where change becomes tangible. All right, now we shift from diagnosis to repair. Up to this point, I've shown you something most people never get taught. Your confidence didn't disappear. It got suppressed through emotional conditioning and nervous system learning. And now we rebuild it. But we're going to do this properly, not performatively, not aggressively, not by throwing you into just be bold exposure nonsense that overwhelms your nervous system and then makes you feel like you failed. Because here's the truth, and I really want this to land clean. You do not build confidence through strategy first. You build confidence through safety first. Strategy without safety creates shutdown. Safety with strategy creates expression. And some of you, lovingly, have been trying to strategize your way out of a safety wound. Posting plans, speaking scripts, confidence hacks, visibility challenges. But your body is still saying, not safe. So today we start where real confidence rebuild begins. Safety, permission, expression, expansion, not the other way around. So take a slow breath right now and unclench your jaw while you're listening. Your body is part of this training, not just your mind. Let me say this like your blunt best friend for a moment. Stop forcing yourself into visibility while your nervous system is in protection. That's not courage. That's self-override. And self-override is the same pattern that buried your confidence in the first place. If your system learned expression equals danger, then forcing expression without regulation just reinforces fear. What builds confidence is this sequence: regulate, express, survive, integrate, repeat. Your system needs evidence that expression is survivable, not once, repeatedly. Safety building practices include slower breathing before speaking, grounding through feet and legs, orientating to the room visually, lowering shoulder tension, lengthening exhales, speaking after regulation, not before. Confidence is not built by pushing harder. It's built by making expression safer. That's the difference between trauma-informed growth and motivational pressure. We are not bullying your nervous system into bravery. We are teaching it safety in truth. Now we install permission, not mentally, physically, because many of you are waiting to feel allowed before you speak. Permission is not a feeling. Permission is a practiced act. Somatic permission means your body learns. I am allowed to take space. Practice this with me. And yes, I want you to actually do this, not just nod like a clever student. Sit or stand upright. Place one hand on your chest and one on your lower belly. And say out loud, slowly, I am allowed to have a voice. I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to be clear. I am allowed to be inconvenient. I am allowed to be seen. Notice what happens in your throat and chest. If emotions rise, good. That means truth is hitting suppression. Don't rush past that sensation. Breathe with it. Permission becomes embodied through repetition. Plus sensation, not intellectual agreement. When you're not convincing yourself, you're conditioning yourself. Practice permission daily, out loud, not silently. Silent permission rarely rewires vocal suppression. Now we start turning the voice back on, mechanically and emotionally. Suppressed confidence almost always includes suppressed vocal energy. Your voice is not weak. It's underused under truth conditions. We train voice like a muscle. So drill one, breath and sound. So inhale through the nose and exhale with an audible ha. Feel the vibration in the throat and repeat that 10 times. Drill two, volume ladder. Say no, whisper, soft, conversational, firm, projected. Climb the ladder slowly. Drill three, truth statements. Speak short truth out loud. I agree. That doesn't work for me. I want something different. Stop. Yes. No. Short truths first. No speeches, just clean signals. Some of you want to give TED Talks before you can say no. That's avoidance dressed as ambition. We build from symbols, not stages. Confidence does not return through grand gestures. It returns through micro-expression repetition. Tiny acts of truth repeated. For example, state your food preference clearly. Correct a small mistake out loud. Share a mild disagreement. Say, no thanks, without an apology. Ask a direct question. Express a small need. Why small? Because repetition beats intensity. Your nervous system learns through frequency, not drama. Stop waiting for the big moment to be confident. Confidence is built in grocery stores, text messages, calendar decisions, and everyday conversations. Micro-expression is the gym. Big moments are the performance. Train first. Now, let's talk about boundaries, and I'm going to lovingly poke you here. Some of you say you want confidence, but you still negotiate every boundary you set. That's not boundary setting, that's boundary suggestion. So we start with micro acts. Delay your reply instead of instant yes. Say, I'll check and I'll get back to you. Hold silence after stating a limit. Repeat your boundary once without adding a new justification. Decline one low-stake request daily. Micro boundaries rebuild self-trust. Self-trust rebuilds confidence. Confidence is not built by being liked. It's built by being self-loyal. And yes, some people will be mildly uncomfortable when you change. Let them. Other people's discomfort is not proof you did something wrong. Sometimes it's proof you stopped abandoning yourself. Now we scale. Gently. Confidence grows through risk, but regulated risk. Not emotional cliff diving. Regulated risk means stretch without flooding. For an example, share one honest opinion in a group. Post one authentic message online. State one real feeling in conversation. Ask one direct question you'd normally avoid. Express one boundary without cushioning. And this part matters. Regulate afterwards. Breathe, walk, ground, shake your arms, exhale long. Teach your body, I express and I'm okay. Integration locks in confidence. Without regulation after risk, your system logs threat instead of growth. We are not chasing adrenaline and courage. We are building regulated courage. Steady, repeatable, embodied. This is where suppressed confidence begins to come back online. Not as personality change, but as nervous system permission. So let's move into full confidence rebuilding structure. Daily repetitions, exposure ladders, and embodied expression training. where this becomes a loving practice instead of a good idea. So stay with me. This is where identity starts to shift. Most people either avoid expression or just try and jump straight into high-stakes visibility and overwhelm themselves. Both are ineffective. Confidence grows through graded exposure, what I call your daily expression ladder. You build a ladder from low risk, medium risk, high risk truth acts. And here's how you build yours. Level 1 is low emotional risk. Daily. State a preference clearly. Say no to something small. Ask a simple question. Correct a minor detail. Express a mild opinion. Use a firm tone in a safe setting. Level 2 is the moderate emotional risk. Several times per week. Disagree gently but clearly. Share a real feeling. Actually ask for what you want. Set a small boundary. Speak first instead of waiting. Share an unscripted thought. Level 3 is the high emotional risk. This is weekly reps. Hold a boundary under pushback. Express disappointment. Share a vulnerable truth. Speak in a group. Post authentic content. Initiate a hard conversation. You climb, you don't leap. And here's your loving interruption again. If you keep waiting until you feel ready for level 3, you'll still be waiting next year. Clarity comes after expression, not before. Build the ladder. Climb it daily. Expression without regulation feels like danger. Expression with regulation feels like growth. So we regulate on both sides of truth-telling. Before expression, 6 slow exhales, longer than inhales. Feel feet pressing into the floor. Relax the tongue and jaw. Drop your shoulders deliberately. Name 3 objects you can see. This tells your nervous system present time safety. After expression, hand on chest breathing, slow walking for 2 minutes. Shake your arms and hands. Long exhale sighs. Gentle humming, vagal tone reset. Why after? Because your body needs closure signals. Otherwise, it logs exposure as unresolved threat. Regulation completes the repetition. No completion, no confidence imprint. Now, this is the part perfectionists hate, which is exactly why you need it. Confidence is strangled by performance pressure. So we install say it badly reps. This means you deliberately allow awkward wording, imperfect tone, clumsy phrasing, pauses, emotional wobbles. Because here's the truth nobody told you. Clean expression is born from messy expression, not from silent rehearsal. So here's some practice phrases. This might come out messy, but I'm not wording this perfectly, but I'm going to say this directly. Messy truth beats polished silence every time. Now we formalize this into the training practice. Once per day, say something honest without editing, softening, without over-explaining and without rehearsing. Short, real, and then done. Here are some examples. I don't like that. I want something different. That upsets me. I need a break. I'm not available. Then just stop talking. Do not decorate the truth. Truth does not need garnish. This trains your system to survive clean expression, which is the foundation of embodied confidence. You are not training eloquence here. You are training congruence. Now, here's a loving call out, and you knew it was coming. Mental rehearsal is often fear procrastination in a productive costume. You tell yourself, I'm preparing. I'm getting clear. I'm finding the right words. But weeks pass and you still haven't spoken. Rehearsal feels safe because it avoids risk. Expression builds confidence because it includes risk. Preparation is useful, but only if it leads to action quickly. So use this rule. Prepare once, express once. Not prepare 17 times and still stay silent. Your nervous system learns from lived repetition, not mental simulations. Speaking imperfectly in reality builds more confidence than speaking perfectly in your head. Every time, confidence is rebuilt through daily exposure, regulated expression, messy truth repetition, imperfect delivery, boundary micro acts, reduced rehearsal, increased reality. Not hype, not personality change, not pretending. Practice. Just practice. At this end, so let's bring this home. And I want you to stay with me for this final integration. Not mentally, but physically. Sit a little taller. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. Breathe slower than you think you need to. Because what we've done here today is not motivation, it's reclamation. And that matters. Most of the personal development world talks about confidence like it's an upgrade you install, like software you download, like a personality patch you apply. But now you know better. Confidence is not installed. Confidence is recovered. It was there before the conditioning, before the emotional correction, before the punished visibility, before the rewarded compliance, before the people-pleasing survival pattern. You did not come into this world apologizing for your needs. You learned that. You did not come into this world afraid to speak. You adapted into that. Which means the path forward is not becoming someone new. It's becoming someone true. And I'm going to say this to you straight, like someone who actually cares about your growth, not just your comfort. You don't need more confidence content. You need more confidence repetition. You don't need another quote saved. You need another truth spoken. You don't need more insight. You need more embodied expression. Because nothing changes while truth stays trapped in your throat. Let's anchor the core pillars you're walking away with today. Confidence is a nervous system state, not a personality trait. Suppression is learned, not permanent. Safety comes before strategy. Expression builds confidence. Silence erodes it. Micro acts rebuild self-trust. Messy truth beats polished avoidance, and regulated risk creates embodied courage. That's your framework now, not hype structure. And here's your integration question. I want you to answer this out loud, not silently. Where am I still choosing approval over self-loyalty? Don't spiritualize your way around that. Don't overthink it. Your body already knows the answer. That's your next growth edge. Now listen, information can open the door, but embodiment is what walks you through it. You can understand everything I've taught you today and still stay stuck if you try to do it alone inside your own blind spots and emotional patterns. Because suppressed confidence is rarely just behavioral. It's relational, emotional, and energetic. This is why embodiment work matters. Guided boundary practice, a voice activation in real time, nervous system regulation coaching, emotional body repair, speaking truth through repetition and support, people-pleasing patterns interruption, and identity-level self-trust rebuilding. Reading about confidence is not the same as practicing it in a healed container. And yes, I'm going to lovingly call this out. Some of you try to DIY your healing forever because asking for support feels vulnerable. But refusing support is not strength, it's defended fear. You don't have to do this alone. You were never meant to. If this work hit your chest, not just your head, then you're ready for deeper transformation, not just more content consumption. So this is your invitation to step into a stop pleasing breakthrough session with me, or a boundary building strategy session. Inside those 30-minute free container, we don't just talk about confidence, we train it somatically and spiritually. This is where suppressed confidence becomes embodied authority. Not loud, not aggressive, but clear, grounded, and real. If you spent years shrinking, softening, and self-editing, this is your turning point. So book a session, step into the work, stop circling the change, and start living it. I also have 3 free freebies in the description box below if you're not ready right now. And if this stirs something in you and you're ready to rebuild your confidence for real, not just think about it, hit the subscribe and join me for the next video. Because we're not doing surface growth here. We're doing embodied transformation. And one final truth before I close. You are not too much. You are underexpressed. Your voice is not the problem. Your silence is the cost. I'll see you inside the deeper work. See you in the next video. Bye for now.